Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us once again for our English news broadcast. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, presenting you a translated version of the news, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. Through their MP Talent Bala, the majority has implied a possible compromise with the Democratic Party on the decriminalization issue. Some days ago, the head of the Socialist Movement for Integration, Ilir Meta, issued a call to the parties to reach consensus and to create sustainable decriminalization reform. It seems that Mr. Meta's statements have calmed the two conflicting parties to some degree, although the Democrats complain that this attitude from the majority was too long delayed. The SMI did not sign the government's draft of constitutional changes for the decriminalization law. Instead, the head of the SMI Parliament Group, Petrit Vasili, explained the points on which consensus between parties must be based. Our stance remains unchanged, he said. This initiative needs widespread consensus. The two drafts that have been introduced for decriminalization have very little difference between them. We ought to be able to find a common solution. If there is no agreement between the parties, we will go to the Commission of Venice for help. Their opinion should be untouchable for both parties, Vasili declared. Mr. Vasili added that all constitutional amendments should be passed through the Special Parliamentary Committee. Some hours later, the Socialist MP Talent Bala denied any disagreement between the two ruling parties. Changing his tone from what he said at the Commission, he agreed that the consensus is needed. His direct quote was this: "The decriminalization should be done as soon as possible. The draft of the government and the draft of the opposition need to be reviewed because, generally speaking, they have a lot in common. There are some differences, but I think that through communication we will have a consensual bill," Mr. Bala declared. He added that the most important thing is achieving the main goal, which means that any person who has been involved in criminal activities cannot be a member of the Albanian parliament. The Democratic MP Oerd Bulukbashi was optimistic and welcoming of the apparent willingness for consensus that was expressed by the majority today. There appears to be common desire for consensus, although the primary disagreements that still remain are fingerprinting and drug testing procedures. In today's parliamentary session, the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama called the members to support the fight against informality. Mr. Rama expressed once again the determination of his government to see the battle through to the end, declaring that there will be no amnesty for companies that do not pay their obligations to the state. Prime Minister Rama gave the same explanation as the Minister of Finance for the failure to reach the budgeted state revenue. He said, "The chaos ended with the past government. The most important decision we have to make is related to the support that the Parliament will give to the operation against informality. Today we are ready to continue the operation because we have seen encouraging results. We have been forced to explain to the citizens what the opposition considered to be theft and corruption. Together with the international experts of the IMF who are assisting us, we have reached a conclusion on why the revenues were not collected according to plan. There are a series of factors that have no relation to the government or the administration: the drastic drop of the oil price in the international markets, the energy reform. This year, the imports of energy have dropped by 47%. We are producing more domestically, which reduced the revenue coming in through customs. Our economic model is focused on domestic production through a series of measures, which have brought a constant growth of imported machinery that is excluded from the VAT. Yet another factor is the interest rate on bank deposits has dropped contrary to expectations," said Prime Minister Rama. Businesses all over the country are supporting the recent decision of the government to give them more time to declare any goods that they have received informally. However, the traders are also saying that this leniency is still not easing the problems in their daily business activities, since it does not decrease the taxes. The government has decided to postpone the deadline for declaration of informal goods until December of 31st. They have extended the deadline for small operations as well, also until the end of this year. This decision was announced yesterday by the head of the Economic Commission, Erion Brace. A doctor has once again fallen victim to violence at the hands of an unhappy patient. After a similar case in Durrës recently, a doctor of oncology in the Tirana hospital was punched by a patient sometime yesterday. The specific details of the event have not been released, but in a telephone conversation with Aura News, the doctor said that she was unaware of any conflict with the patient. She said only that she knew the patient was undergoing chemotherapy and that this attack was a violation of her person and of her years of service. In response to yesterday's event, several doctors did not perform their planned surgeries today, and they will submit a petition to the Ministry of Health to provide more protection for them. The oncology department continued as normal today, but the doctor who was punched did not return to work, claiming emotional and physical distress. Many of the patients in the hospital are blaming the doctors for the poor conditions and for the lack of medicines available. Two cousins were involved today in an armed conflict in Mamouras, in which one person was killed and 4 more were injured. The fight broke out right in the center of Mamouras, close to the municipality building. According to the preliminary investigations, the conflict originated between the parties years ago in Italy, where they were involved in a prostitution network. The cousins are Dorian and Enrique Memli, and the police say that Dorian was the initiator of the fight, shooting his cousin with a firearm. Enrique returned fire, and the flying bullets killed a man named Naim Tafa, who was traveling with Dorian. The police arrested Enrique after he fled his vehicle on foot, trying to escape. A full investigation has been launched, and the injured are currently hospitalized in Tirana. With the asylum crisis still on the forefront of Albanian-German relations, the two countries have still managed to reach an agreement on pensions. The Albanian Minister of Social Welfare signed the agreement today, together with his German counterpart. The agreement details mutual recognition of pensions between the countries, and roughly 15,000 immigrants will benefit from the arrangement. The German Secretary of State declared today that this agreement is a big step in deepening the cooperation between the countries, especially in social policy, economic cooperation, and opening of new jobs. The German official made it clear that Germany will open its doors only to those who meet the legal criteria. He said, "There is a legal path to be followed by the category of people who want to stay in Germany, like obtaining the blue card of the EU or filling a job on the list of vacancies. Those who come to Germany in a legal and legitimate way will be welcomed." Minister Klosi announced that certain Albanian vocational schools will soon be aligned with those of Germany in order to give Albanian citizens the opportunity to enter the international labor market. The State Environmental Inspectorate has signed a cooperation agreement with the Agency of Protected Areas to improve the monitoring of companies that abuse Albania's natural resources. In a media statement, the head of the inspectorate warned that 50% of the companies that have been caught exploiting natural resources are going to be closed down because they did not respect their temporary suspensions. This action against abusive companies was included in the agreement that was signed today between the two institutions. The agreement will also increase the measures for monitoring companies that work with natural resources. That concludes our news for this evening. We thank you once again for choosing Aura News as your source for English updates. Please join us again at the same time tomorrow. Thanks, and have a great night.